no. Thank you, but I just wanted to ask you which way I ought to go.
Well, that depends on where you want to get to.
Oh, it really doesn't matter. As long as I can...
Then it really doesn't matter which way you go.
The cat went on to tell Alice, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. You know, Alice in Wonderland is a story that we can all relate to because we've all either read the story or watched the video. But how many times how many times can we use that story just in our walk with purity? You know, so many times we're on this road of, we're on this purity fight, but we don't really know where we're going. This week, we're talking about objectives and clarifying our objectives. And I think this week is going to be vitally important for our fight against purity, because how many times do we use this fight against purity but have no idea what that means? Think about it, guys. We don't know a lot of times what we're fighting. I'm a victim to this idea that where are we going? So there's a famous TED Talk by Simon Sinek. It's this idea of starting with why. Simon wrote it for corporations and people, everyday people, but I think it applies a lot to our purity. Simon pretty much talks about this golden circle. He draws this big circle and he says it's the what circle. He says every single person, organization, company, you name it, knows what they do. And I would totally agree with him. Within that what circle, he puts another circle and labels it the how circle. And he says within everyone that knows what they do, some people know how they do it. But then he writes a little circle in the middle of the how circle, and that's his why circle. And he says, unfortunately, many people do not understand their why. Now, he uses the example when corporations and people know their why, they can be more satisfied, they can make more money and be more successful. But in reality, how does this apply to purity? See, a lot of times we go from the what and how. This is what I struggle with, this is how I can overcome. But we don't really understand the why. Guys, this purity project could fall victim to that. We're giving you the what and how, but if it doesn't convict the why, it's going to fall flat on its face. So how do we clarify our objectives? How do we find our why? Here's a couple questions that I have asked on myself. First of all, what's our purpose and belief in life? I know that's kind of very vague and kind of right in your face, but what's our purpose? And then when we kind of understand that, then what's the purpose to purity in general? Why are we fighting? Next question, why do we want to be free? Why do we want to be pure in God's eyes? We have to clarify, it can't be my why, it cannot be the Purity Project's why. It's got to be your why. And as Christians, we have to go to the Lord and say, Lord, why should I walk pure in your eyes? There's a gentleman by the name of John O'Leary. This guy has an incredible testimony, and I've listened to some of his stuff on living an inspired life. And when he was asked about his why, it was very clear. He said, I have a why because life is tough. And he says, my why to thrive is that God demands it, my family deserves it, and the world is starved for it. And that was just a wake-up call for me. In kind of wrapping this up, there's a quote that once I heard it, it's always just been on my mind. It's this quote that kind of goes like this: when we know our why, we can endure anyhow. A lot of times we get focused on this idea of purity, and it's easy to get just knocked down and get discouraged and just focus on the what. It's really easy to focus on the what. But when we understand our why and we kind of know where we're going, then the fight, the journey, whatever analogy you want to use, it's worth fighting. So when we know our why, we can endure anyhow. Be blessed.